I'll take Brian for me. And I'm getting on Zoom.
Looks like he's ready.
There we go. I'm getting.
All right, go ahead. That's a good one.
All right. It's 6 o'clock. We're going to call our meeting to order. This is City Council business meeting for Thursday, November 2nd, 2023. It is 6 p.m. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Here.
Baker,
Here.
Reba. Here. Cool,
Here.
Livingston. Here. Mayor Tom Phillips.
I am here. We do have quorum, so we will move on. Item number 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me?
I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to move any of the consent agenda items to the regular agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Motion carries. Item number 4 is welcome of guests and public comment. Thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate you being here and participating in your local government. At this point in time, we'd open up the dais for anybody who wants to talk to and address council about something that's not on the agenda. We'll give you a 3-minute time limit. We can't take action on those tonight because they're not on the agenda, and that would be a violation of the open meetings law. Also, if you'd like to comment on any item that's in the consent agenda, now would be the time. Would anybody like to address council? Hearing nobody, we will move on. Item number 5, we have a presentation tonight from Denman and Company presenting the fiscal year 23 audit. Have at it.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hey, can you pull the microphone up? There you go. Thank you very much.
Again, my name is Robert Enders. I'm a partner with Denman and Company. Denman was engaged to perform the City of Norwalk's fiscal year 2023 audit. We do have the audit presentation here to go over tonight. The document itself is a good 60 pages long. I thought we probably didn't want to go in page by page for that. So we have a PowerPoint presentation here to try to make that a little bit more digestible for you this evening. Look, if you skip a couple pages in to the outline there, perfect. We'll go over the independent auditors report briefly, talk about some summary financial for the year, and I'll spend a little bit of time talking about our work on internal controls and compliance, and wrap up with some required communications from the audit. In that independent auditors report, just a couple reminders here. I know you've all heard me say this before, but just to reiterate, the financials you're about to look at are those of management. Management is responsible for ensuring those financials are complete and accurate, that they conform with accounting standards, and that controls are in place to support the accuracy of those financial statements. Our responsibility as the city's auditor is to perform an audit and to express an opinion on whether or not management's financial statements are indeed accurate. For us to do that, we first start by assessing the risk to an error to those financial statements. So what counts, what balances, what processes present a risk to there being a financial statement error. So for example, all audits have the risk of management override or control. So we have to evaluate that risk and adapt audit procedures to help mitigate the possibility of management override or controls. Of course, a city being a public entity, there's additional risk associated with the fact that you're using public funds. So that risk is also encompassed in our audit procedures. And we develop those audit strategies then to mitigate those risks. I'm happy to say that we are issuing what we call unmodified or clean opinions on the financial statements, which is the highest level of assurance our profession provides regarding the accuracy of management's financials. Jumping ahead, looking at the financials here real briefly, notice won't be a surprise to anyone. The city's growing, and that's reflected here in the city's financial statements. Cash basis receipts in the fiscal year, a little bit north of 55.6 million, up about 17.5 million from the prior period. Bond proceeds, a big part of that reason. And of course, those are fairly cyclical, but even outside of that, revenue growth in most of those revenue categories. Similar story with expenditures, expenditure growth in most categories there. Expenditures up from 31 million to 38 million in the current year. One of the evaluations we do is we look at fund balance of those governmental funds to make sure that the city has those fund reserves that are necessary. So you can see here those governmental fund balances, capital projects fund being the biggest driver right now. And that has to do with the timing of those bond proceeds as they came in and will be expended out here in future periods. Next slide over looks at the general fund balance. Of course, the general fund is that core operating fund of the city. One of the ways that cities can evaluate its fiscal health is to look at that fund balance and compare it to cash on hand, days cash on hand. So normal, general speaking, we're looking at 90 to 180 days is considered a fairly healthy cash position for the general fund, depending on just how conservative the city wants to be with that metric. Norwalk's well within that range, sitting at about 135 days. The slight dip you see in that metric this current year has nothing to do with the fund balance, which stayed almost exactly where it was last year. It has just more to do with expenditure growth, which of course is going to impact the forecast. The final financial slide here we have is looking at those enterprise funds. Those enterprise funds are reliant on charges from customers and are heavily driven on infrastructure costs. So those net operating revenues of those funds need to be available to fund future infrastructure improvements. So you can see here, this city's three major enterprise funds, all generating strong operating income, slight dip in sewer this past year, but strong operating incomes well north of 1.2, 1.6 million each. And of course, stormwater is a much smaller utility. Now, along with our responsibility for performing an audit on the financial statements themselves, we do have some responsibilities to evaluate internal controls and compliance. While we're not expressing an opinion on internal control, we do gain an understanding of the city's control processes during the course of our audit work. And if we identify deficiencies in your controls during that work, we have a responsibility to evaluate those deficiencies and elevate them to you. On top of that, the state of Iowa does ask us to look at various compliance concepts and to ensure the city is compliant with those regulations and rules that are dictated down by the state. I'm happy to say we did not have any deficiencies in internal control that we identified during the course of our audit work, and nor did we have any instances of non-compliance. So that's clean of an audit opinion as we can issue. Finally, we do have some responsibilities to communicate certain other concepts here to the council. That's issued in a separate letter that you should have access to. So I do encourage you to take a look at that letter. In short, that letter is intended to provide us an opportunity to air our dirty laundry if we have dirty laundry to air. I'm happy to say it's a very dull letter, which is good. We don't like issuing exciting governance letters. So you can see all those no's. No, we did not have any issues with management. No, we did not have any disagreements. There were no significant issues in performing the audit. So again, a very dull governance letter, which is what we're hoping to issue. And I do want to stop here and thank Luke and Jean and the rest of the city staff. They've been fantastic to work with. They make our job very easy, and we are quite grateful for that. I know that was quick. Can I answer any questions on the audit report or work we've done?
I like that it was quick. Thank you very much.
Yes. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Enjoyed a boring audit.
No one likes exciting audits. I agree with that.
Exactly. All right.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Item number 6 is our consent agenda. Tonight we have expenditures, tax abatements, the October 19th, 2023 minutes of the special city council meeting. We have the October 19th, 2023 minutes of the regular city council meeting. We have a renewal Class B retail alcohol license for Get and Go convenience store. Have renewal of Class C retail alcohol license for Pyro Pizza. We have a resolution approving a mutual aid agreement pursuant to Iowa Code Section 28E between the Northern Warren Fire and Emergency Response Agency and the city of Norwalk, Iowa. We have a resolution to approve final pay estimate to Howery Construction, change order number 1 and certificate of completion for phase 3 of the Great Western Trail Connection Project. We have a resolution to approve partial payment number 1 to Progressive Structures LLC for the Northeast Service Area Lift Station and Trunk Sewer Improvements. A resolution approving a reimbursement agreement with Dunn landowners for certified site expenses. A resolution approving starting wage for newly hired full-time firefighter EMS provider Ryan Delaney. A resolution approving the disposal of city property, police department weapons. Approval of fiscal year 2023 financial audit report. We have a resolution authorizing letter of support and financial commitment for the North and Middle Rivers Watershed Management Authority. And we have a resolution approving amended City of Norwalk financial policies. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Wow.
Take your pick. I don't care.
I'm gonna say motion by Cool, seconded by Livingston. It was darn close though.
No, I don't accept it.
Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yeah.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7 We have old and new business for consideration, discussion, and possible action. So item A is a public hearing regarding an amendment to the North Shore Plan Unit Development. We'll open up the public hearing at 6:09 PM. The purpose of this hearing is to get public input on this PUD change. So Chris, you're on.
All right, Mayor and Council, Christopher Shires, Principal with Confluence, 525 17th Street, Des Moines, Iowa, representing the property owner of North Shore Road Contractors. I know you have other things on the agenda, and this amendment has been reviewed, so I won't go into detail unless you have any questions, other than just to acknowledge that this was presented to the Lakewood Village Association. They are supportive of this amendment. This amendment does reflect the recent PUD approved on the Stark property. We adjusted roadways and land uses to align. And the Planning Commission at their review did unanimously recommend approval of the amendment to the PUD. So happy to stick around, come back up, go into greater detail. I think I'll let you kind of direct the show on how much you want.
Okay. Anything from council? Lindsay, have we received any oral or written comments?
We have not.
Okay, any other public comment on this item? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public hearing at 6:11 PM. Item 7B is the first reading of an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Norwalk, Iowa by amending the North Shore PUD. So we heard about this item in public hearing. Luke, anything you want to add?
Nothing for me.
Any discussion or comments from council?
I was kind of curious if the house.
You're not sure? Okay. Any public comment?
Motion.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba to approve the first reading as presented. Any further discussion? Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester.
Okay, motion carries. Item 7C is public hearing regarding the public safety HVAC project. So we'll open up public hearing at 6:12 PM. Purpose of the hearing is to get public input on this project. Chief, I'll let you explain what's going on.
So we've, as you know, we've had an HVAC issue at the public safety building for quite a while. We hired an engineer to do some drawings and then help us with the bid process. Bid process netted 2 bids. We feel that the bids are high, and we should try again.
Okay. Lindsay, have we received any oral or written comments on this?
We have not.
Okay, any other public comment on this item? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public hearing at 6:13 PM. Item 7C is continuing. So based on what's been presented, council may consider the following options. So we can either approve the contract as bid or reject the bids and start over. So what questions does council have on this?
I gotta agree with the chief that he's so well, when they put it, they're a little high.
Roll high.
Is there a reason why did they? Sprouted or?
Well, we're not 100% sure on all the reasons, but it's a combination of several things. We had a pre-bid meeting and no contractors showed up for it. So the 2 bids we got didn't have all the information they probably should have had. Contractors that we thought were going to put in a bid didn't have time to complete the bid once they saw the documents in the workroom where they find these things. Those sort of things just didn't happen like they should have. And since the bids came in, we've evaluated why we only got 2 and why they were high, and we feel like redoing it should bring them down to or way down closer to the estimate that the engineer's given us.
And just to be clear, so what you're recommending is to go with item 2, which is to reject project bids proceed with that resolution.
Yes,
So C2.
Then you'll rebid it again.
rebid it right away. Yes, sir.
Any other question?
Confused.
Not the two that, right?
Yeah, the II. The Roman numeral 2. I'm confused about the way that the agenda item is written. Right, so it's written as a public hearing. But then several things for the council to consider. I don't know exactly.
Part of the
what it's supposed
reason-
to do.
So normally when we approve plan specifications, in other words, if you were to award the bid, that would be part of happening after a public hearing. So we're doing that just in case that was the option you took. Ultimately, if you decide to reject the bids, the public hearing still stands. We'll have to go back through the bidding process. There'll have to be another public hearing and those items considered again in the future.
Okay, so right now we're in a public hearing.
No, we've closed the public hearing.
I missed that. I don't know. Okay, thank you. Good. All right.
Okay.
So I'd make a motion to reject the bid.
Second.
Okay, so I got a motion to reject the bids from Poole, a second by Baker. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Yeah, 1 second here. You also need to say and start the bid process over or just.
Not yet.
Okay, you ready for roll?
Yes, please.
Okay, Councilmember Lester,
Yeah.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Okay, so that motion carries. Item 7C, Roman numeral 2 is to reject project bids and authorize bid process to start over. Number 1 is a resolution rejecting the bids received for the public safety HVAC project. So we just had a public hearing for this project and motion from council to reject the bid process and to start over. Chief, do you got anything to add?
No, sir.
All right, what discussion, comments, questions from council are there?
Motion.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reva. Any public comment? Or any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yeah.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7D is a final reading of an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Norwalk, Iowa by amending parcel J in the Echo Valley Plan Unit Development to permit automotive services as improved use. So this is to allow the Christian Brothers Automotive Corporation to build an auto repair type of business along Marketplace Drive. Luke, do you got anything to add?
Nothing from last time.
All right, Luke, any discussion or comments, questions for council? Or any public comment? Now's the time. I get a motion to approve final reading?
Second.
Motion by Baker, seconded by Livingston. Any further discussion? Sorry, Ed.
That's right.
Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
No.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester.
No.
All right, motion carries. Item 7E is a resolution approving settlement agreement with Ted's Used Cars and Auto Repair. Jim, I'm gonna let you explain this one.
Okay, well, basically, this item on the agenda is Ted's Used Cars is located down on the corner of Highway 28 and North Avenue on the northeast corner. And obviously, he had to give up some easements and his business with the intersection improvements was affected, and the city properly compensated him for those easements and everything in the beginning. The only remaining part on there is there was an agreement that didn't have exact dollar amounts for the city to participate in helping replace a sign that was on the property. And, you know, basically the agreement was a digital sign. At the time that the agreement was entered into, basically between, I think it was our engineer on the project, was the communication with the owner of Ted's. They agreed that we would take care of that in the end. We're now at the end. There is an estimated cost that's attached to the resolution. I believe it's about $41,000 in the city's agreed to, and this agreement pay half of that. This is tied to the next item on the agenda. You'll see the commercial improvement grant. As you know, we've got that commercial improvement grant program in place that we've had for several years. And Ted's looking at it, doing some qualified improvements, I think, in lighting and door, and that'll go along with the sign. And that's the next item on the agenda, but this is the agreement regarding the sign itself.
Okay. Discussion, comments, questions from council?
I have a question. So when whoever it was talked to Ted about this, they didn't have a digital sign. I thought the expectation was that they would just be replacing the sign that they have, which I know signs are expensive, but I would think is considerably less than the sign that we were just given the bill.
Yes,
for.
I
How
was-
does that work?
I was not involved with those negotiations. However, my understanding that it was an agreement that it would be a digital sign.
Okay.
So that was specified at the time.
And we didn't put a cap on it?
There was not a cap on it.
And my memory is that I seem to remember that at some point, the initial discussion about a sign was actually considerably higher than this. So I remember the discussion, and I remember expressing, and I reiterate now, my dissatisfaction with the agreement that was entered into. However, I acknowledge that there was agreement entered into. And I'm certainly willing to honor that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, if we've been committed to something, we should keep our word. It's unfortunate how it all came about, that it wasn't done a different way, but the agent, I guess, negotiated this.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, I don't fault Ted's for wanting to improve their property. I just think that
No.
before an agreement was reached, it should have been brought to us. Or a commitment was made, it should have been
Right.
brought to council.
Yes, ma'am.
And maybe we would have ended up in the same place, but we should have been able to weigh in first.
I agree.
Any public comments? I get a motion to approve resolution as
Motion.
presented.
Second,
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Cool. Any further discussion? Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yeah.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7F is a resolution approving a commercial improvement grant application for Ted's Used Cars and Auto Repair. So I'm gonna let Holly and Jim explain this one as well.
Well, this goes along with last time, so I guess I'll talk first, and Holly has anything to add she can, but this total project is it's gonna be, looks like a pretty good improvement for the corner. It's gonna be a total cost of $92,000. I think it's lighting for new advanced lighting for pets, and some improvements to the overhead doors and everything. And so I guess he submitted the application, and it appears to comply.
Awesome. Any questions from council?
So we've exhausted the commercial grant program money. And I thought the understanding when we set this up, the commercial grant and the residential improvements, there was a cap. When it was out, it was out. You had to wait until the next year to have it funded. So if it's approved to take this money from TIF reserves, are you then going to get less in commercial grant money next year, fiscal year? I mean, does that? Back, is that how you choose to use your TIP reserves?
I would reflect this back to Jim, because I just going along with what is been requested. I think that the best way to explain the grant program is, since we pay out the improvements after the applicant has paid for the improvements. So it's done in reimbursement form. So right now we've committed our full fund for the year because of the applicants that we have in place that were approved. But we've only paid out $75,000 or $73,000 worth of our 100 that we have available for our fiscal year. based on his improvements and when they'll be done and when he'll actually be reimbursed, the timing would probably work out to where we're into the next fiscal year anyway, so his would come out of the next fiscal year at that point. But if for some reason all of the improvements we've committed to and his happen all within the same year, then we can use TIF reserves. So other than that, I would maybe turn it over to Jim or Luke on
Yeah,
why there was an exception there, yes.
the main thing I would say is ultimately it's up to council. If you decide you want to reduce the grants available next fiscal year 25, you could reduce it by the amount that's being granted here and allow those reserves to fill back up. If you decide you don't want to do that and you want to continue to offer the grant program at the full amount, then it just means we use these funds from reserves.
Well, I'm not gonna be here. Discussion. My
If-
preference would be to do I mean, I commend Ted for doing it. I mean, it sounds like they're great improvements. But I think that they should wait until we definitely have the money. With everything else that's going on with the state and taxes and not knowing where funds are coming from, I would just like to have it be in the fiscal year that it's supposed to be in. And if you expect that it's not gonna be paid out until July 1st anyway, I would rather that during the budget process that be taken into account.
I think Ted's funds were paid out before that. I think his are ready to go. Improvements ready to be done before the end of this calendar year.
So it's the other projects that won't be ready.
We've already committed to them. I think when we talked to Jean about how to shift this around, if that were to happen, if all of these came through at the same time, is that she's comfortable with the TIP reserves. And then in our next fiscal year, if we need to reduce that kind of overage, then we could reduce that July 1.
My recommendation to council is when you do the budget, that you reduce the commercial grant program next year to account for the fact that this money is out.
Yeah, that's right.
Could make that a condition of your motion.
Or the other option,
But
Stephanie, would be, we have talked about raising that grant fund back up to the original amount. We started out a couple of years ago with $150,000 per year. And then kind of during the COVID years, we dropped it down to 100,000, just not knowing where budgets would go. So we have talked about raising that back up to its original amount, depending on budget, of course, when we go through the process here in a couple of weeks. So that might end up kind of washing out part of that. So we could either just request to increase the fund back to its normal amount. And that way it balances, or we could just reduce it by the amount of this particular grant. So there's those two options, I guess.
I don't want to make my motion conditional because that ties your hands in the budget process. You got a lot of moving pieces to consider. I just would like to request that council consider that this is being done and that really it's like a credit against future. Thanks.
I think this it's doing what we want it to do. Grant process, we've had a lot of businesses in residential. It's been successful. I'm happy with it.
I feel like we spend a lot of money and time and exceptions to entice new businesses, new residential to come here. I think we need to invest in as much to keep businesses here. And I appreciate the fact that Ted's is invested in our community and that our community is invested in them and they stay and they're a local business. And yeah, I don't disagree, right? We need to be mindful of the budget. And I think every year we have those budget discussions. This offends me very little in terms of our budget discussion. And I think this is an appropriate use of these funds.
Like the use of TIF funds so that existing businesses benefit from that TIF situation, you know, as well as when you like had mentioned, so. And we can be mindful of that when we set the budget next year if I'm still here. And you know, make adjustments.
And Stephanie, Jean is on, she couldn't be at the meeting tonight, but she is on the Zoom and I'm sure she's making notes to bring this up during budget discussions.
Do we have any public comment? I get a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Livingston, second by Cool. Do we have any further discussion? Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yeah.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7G, the Legacy PUD amendment. So item GI is removed from table to consideration of an ordinance amending the Legacy PUD within the city of Norwalk, Iowa by allowing the homes per acre in the PUD parcel 3 to be up to 25 and to exempt 20 studio apartments from the city's balcony patio requirements. So any discussion or question from council?
No motion to remove from the table.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
So motion by Livingston, seconded by Baker. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Livingston.
Yes.
Lester.
Yeah.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool.
Would you restate the motion again?
Rotate.
Table.
And I'll vote yes.
So motion carries. Item G2, Roman numeral 2. We have potential action upon ordinance amending the Legacy PUD within the city of Norwalk, Iowa by allowing the homes per acre in PUD parcel 3 to be up to 25 and to exempt 20 studio apartments from the city's balcony patio requirements. Council can consider the following options. Option number 1 is a resolution approving the third consideration of the ordinance. Option number 2 is resolution approving a motion to reconsider the previous readings of the ordinance. And then we would have a first reading of the ordinance. So there are some inconsistencies between the state of Iowa code and the city of Norwalk ordinance in regards to how the area is calculated for the consideration of a petition. And if that petition triggers a supermajority vote when approving the zoning changes. So please be aware that we're going to work on removing these inconsistencies, and Norwalk's ordinance is going to mirror state law. Because of those inconsistencies, potentially we have caught those inconsistencies potentially have caused an irreconcilable conflict. We've decided to bring this back for council to consider the two paths. First is to assume we've followed our past practice and that the area was calculated according to state code, and therefore no supermajority is needed, and we can vote on a resolution stating such, and that resolution also approves the third reading of the zoning ordinance. That's path number 1. Second path is to pass a resolution that indicates we understand that there are inconsistencies, and even though past practice was to follow state of Iowa code, there's enough inconsistency to cause an irreconcilable conflict, and council will consider a resolution that considers the prior 2 readings. We'll then have a discussion and vote on the first reading of the ordinance. So that's path number 2. Before I let council deliberate and before we ask for public input, I'd like to ask Jim to clarify all this, just so we hear it from the expert on city and state code in this matter. So Jim.
Well, I think you stated it accurately. I mean, we have discussed this quite a bit at multiple meetings. The Iowa code is different than what the Norwalk code says. And Iowa code is much clearer, I think, on this issue. Norwalk.
Yeah.
What's that? Okay. Sorry.
Speaking to the mic, Jim.
Yes, they always tell me I lean back too much. Like I say, I think we've spoken about this quite a bit, discussed the differences on the two, between state code and the local code. Local code is worded differently. Local code can be interpreted to require at this point in time only a simple majority. But also there are arguments that have been made that a supermajority should be required. State code, I think, would require a simple majority still only. And, you know, I think the council has found that but there is an inconsistency. I think in the future, that's one thing that we were looking at even before, even before tonight, that there will be a future ordinance change to bring those two in line. I could get into a lot of detail why they're different, but basically our current code kind of reflects what was said prior to the state code being amended a number of years ago. And I don't think the local codes were ever changed accordingly. So at this point in time, I think you've outlined the different options. I think there are people that want to talk and probably get public input on that and then we'll answer more questions from the council.
Okay. So the question right now is, I think, a matter strictly between council and staff. And that's, let's have a discussion between option 1 and option 2. And then I'd like to have a motion to determine which path we're gonna take. So what questions? Discussion? No. Okay.
Can I say one thing on this?
Yes.
So on this, I've had a lot of phone calls and emails and things on this, and I have to say that the part that everybody keeps telling me is they don't want a 15 or 5-story, 15. Oh Lord, no, I don't want a 5-story apartment complex in that spot. And the problem is, that's not up for debate tonight. If we don't allow this variance to go through, they can put a 5-story apartment complex up there without a variance. And that's the part that I've sat down and sat with several people one-on-one and explained that to them. And as we've discussed it, it's made more sense to them that the 5-story complex is there. If Nelson decides to put a 5-story complex in, that's what they choose to do. The question is can they add more units? And the units they're trying to add are studios and singles, which typically bring in 1.25 persons. Is that right? I'm looking at Alexander a little bit because the industry standards for apartment ratios is that if they come back with one that meets code, they're going to come back with all 3-bedroom apartments. And those typically have almost 4 people in there. And it's less singles and more families. And, you know, you end up with 4 and 5 people in those apartments. So I'm just wanting to preface everybody to understand the restrictions we're putting in place on this would limit the occupancy. It's kind of a weird thing. More units, but less occupancy because they're smaller units. So I just want to make sure, I just want to clarify, because that's something that I don't know that anybody's really just sat down and said from up here has said, we've all said it to different people, but I don't know that it's just been laid out that that's exactly what it is tonight is, are we going to allow more units for a lower occupancy, or are we going to not do it and still have a 5-story apartment complex there? And I've told several people, and I'll say it right now, the blame for allowing the 5-story apartment complex goes back to whenever we changed it to R4, allow R4. And I agreed with the R4 at that time. And the piece we didn't do at that time was say it should be R4 with a cap of X feet. And we should have done that then. And the council, I don't know if you've caught on some of these other rezonings that have happened, but all of our rezonings that get these little tweaks in them are having things like the Christian Brothers one. It has things in there that keep it from being really much anything other than that. I mean, it's the restrictions on there. So I just want to make sure everybody understands the 5-story. If you come up and just start telling us you don't want a 5-story apartment complex there, I can't stop that. The 5-story apartment complex is probably going to go there, whether it's a matter of whether there's more units with less people. Now it sounds backwards, or less units with more people, and potentially more cars. So I just want to start by saying, I just wanted to say that because I don't know that that's been conveyed just straight out and flat. And from my aspect, I want to make sure everybody understands that's how I'm viewing this right now is the 5-story apartment is going to go there. It's a matter of whether it's got 500 residents or 400 residents. I don't know the numbers, but 500 or 400. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And also that was done 10 years ago.
No,
And it was right after I came on council.
that R4 zoning was 5 years ago, 4 years ago.
Anyway,
I was
many
part
years
of that.
ago.
I'll take,
And-
I was part of that. I do recall that.
And then before that, though, it was done as town center,
Right.
which was apartment. It was commercial on the bottom and apartments on the top. And this goes back to the beginning of
25 years, yeah.
it started. And so it was always designed to be high density. End of story. I mean, that was just it. So don't be surprised that there is, something there. Now, what I have found out after all this, and rethinking about all of it, is he can come back without the variances and the decks and requirements like that. He can put up a luxury apartment, full market. He can come back and put up low middle income housing. It's totally up to him. It doesn't come through us anymore. You guys need to know that this is a fact.
We actually did go over that.
Well,
Because I
I
know
said
we
we've all
talked
talked,
about
you've
this
said
before.
it.
I
but
have in my notes here
different people.
that, Alexander, you had estimated that if it, or somebody had estimated that if it were built just with no variance, you know, so you'd have 2 and 3 bedrooms, that we actually would have 114 more people.
More people.
More people, right?
If we don't do anything, there will be more people there.
Right, and that's from my perspective, that's why I have come out in support of this. That's why my vote has been yes, because whether or not an apartment can go there was settled years ago. Whether or not more people and more traffic can be there was settled years ago. The variances that they are asking for actually reduce the number of people rather than increase the number of people. So I hear you all, I really do. But the complaints that I hear are already settled. And from my perspective, this proposal is much better than what we could have if we don't act. But we were gonna talk amongst ourselves and now we've all pontificated.
Right, and you just completely ruined the notes that I already had.
Really sorry.
Because y'all said it for me, so
I
thank you.
think
No, I don't want to say it over again. I don't,
in choosing between the two,
another time would help.
I think in choosing between the two,
Yeah.
I think it has been unclear. And I think for transparency in that, I would like to readdress. I would like to readdress.
Okay,
this
so
issue.
are you making a motion to go with option number 2?
Well, I'm just stating, I'm not actually making a motion. I will make that motion, but I just wanted to
Okay,
start
so
the
you're,
conversation that direction.
So, do I make that motion?
I'll make that. Yeah.
I'm sorry, before we
Go
make
ahead.
that motion, and maybe this comes after the motion, I would like a legal opinion about how we can do that. About how we can undo 2 prior votes.
I think we'll talk about that.
Okay,
Okay,
2, we did the first and the second reading.
we'll talk about that.
Okay,
So, say it again.
I would move that we
Choose option number 2.
choose option.
There you go. Do I have a second?
yes, second.
Okay, so, huh? Not that.
Okay.
Okay, so I got a motion by Baker to go with option number 2. A second by Livingston. Lindsay, would you call roll? When you're ready.
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Before I vote, I just want to comment that I'm opposed to the apartments being in. You know, what David has said makes sense, I understand. But I'm opposed to it. And anything, I think it's too big a building in the wrong place. Right? Frustrated because I wish we could have done things differently in the past, but we're where we are. Okay? So I'm gonna vote no on this motion.
Okay,
Livingston.
Yes.
all right, so that motion carries. So before we go on, so one of the complaints, I agree with everything that's set up here as far as trying to clarify the 5-story building it's the ship sailed. There's gonna be a 5-story apartment building on that site. We really can't do anything much about that. What we can do is we can discuss and how that building is gonna be configured. One complaint that I hear all the time is that Norwalk doesn't have a good supply of housing for new teachers, new public safety employees, servers for that restaurant that you guys want to have. And or a place for a young professional that works at like the bank, maybe, that wants to actually live in Norwalk. This apartment's gonna provide 20 studio apartments, which is gonna be perfect for that demographic. I believe this is needed. It's an improvement and reasons why people want to live and work in Norwalk. I also want to add that I believe less density of people isn't such a bad thing. With all that said, I also want to recognize that we hear what you've been saying. We understand that this is a big change. All of you look across an empty field that embodies the feel of a large open park. We understand it's difficult. This council also recognizes and respects the actions that happened before us in a few years back. We understand that this developer bought this property with a legal right to construct a 5-story apartment building. They have the legal right to construct a 5-story apartment building. Developers proposing a project that could have less people, less traffic, and less impact on the adjacent residents. But in any case, it's more intense than what exists today, which is an empty vacant lot. We must carefully act when considering adjacent property owners' opinions. I think we have, and the rights of property owners. It's a delicate balance to take. All right. So we are going to go with option number 2, which is a resolution approving motion to reconsider the previous readings of the ordinance. So I would like, before we go and start talking with council, like to ask, this is going to be a joint motion because of the way things went. What we want to have is a motion from somebody who won the vote and a motion who somebody lost the vote. Now, based on, or somebody who voted yes, somebody who voted no, because based on the inconsistencies that were there, one of those was a winner and one of those was a loser, depending on which way you look at it. So we would like the winners to ask for the reconsideration. So we need somebody who voted a yes, the motion for the reconsideration. We need to have somebody who voted no, the motion for the reconsideration. And we'll get a second from a third party. And then we'll go, we'll then take the vote.
So having done a yes vote, I move to reconsider previous readings of the ordinance.
And I voted no, I would move that.
Okay. You'll second that. So motions by Livingston and Baker, second by Riva. What further discussion do you have or questions do you have about this?
One thing they popped up was the park piece, and I'm just curious if we can get clarification on that.
The park piece,
Sorry.
there we go again. The park piece, it's a valid question, and frankly, it's not settled right now. If the park is dedicated in its whole, then the unit density will be too great for what's being approved today. Okay, so but normally the park dedication is handled at the time of site plan and everything else, because as this council knows, I mean, sometimes there's the acreage, sometimes there's payment in lieu of, sometimes there's partial dedication with park improvements being made. Our ordinance allows for that flexibility, so that will, at the time of site improvements, probably at the start first of the year, that'll be discussed.
And those, to that point, those discussions, they've been floating things around internally. We'd have them scheduled multiple times to go talk to Parks Commission. And as this process has gone on, we've delayed those discussions because they're wanting to obviously be respectful of our zoning process and the decisions that you guys all make. So that hasn't gone to that next step yet. But Jim's correct. We would typically solve that issue after the zoning was done, when a project came forward with its formal site plan, subdivision, whatever that would be.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that too, because that's popped up, so I just wanted to make sure.
So per usual course of action, the parkland dedication is not ripe for discussion.
Correct.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes,
Thank
that's
you.
correct.
And then I just have a question on the ordinance, because we talked about this and we have all the criteria attached. I just want to make sure that the building, the materials that were presented, that is provided in Exhibit B, very nice materials and upgrade really from what we would require. And we ask that it be, that it substantially follow the concept. Define substantially, like it needs to follow the concept, or
What we were attempting to do by utilizing that wording is recognizing that final designs for that building haven't been complete. So we know we've often ran into situations where a percentage material might be 2 or 3% low on one side of the building or in one area. So understanding that they're going to go back and take a much finer tooth look at everything and then give us things. We wanted to match the concept here and have a little bit of leeway with percentages. So I don't know what that would be.
so it's on record.
Yep.
Audio, that it means that they can't come back with like a apartment building ready to drive it.
Yes.
Okay.
And to that point, I believe, so if you were to go to page 14 of the staff report, there's a table of material types. And as it stands right now, the building would be above our R4 requirements. And so I think the general thing we would want to be looking at is that it continued to be above the R4 requirements and within a reasonable percentage. I have my opinion what that would be, and obviously you guys all would as well. But I'd say within, 5% of what it was. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So right now we're discussing the resolution to approve the reconsideration. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from council? Yes.
I'm not counsel, but I just need to jump in, just to confirm that the second to both of those motions was made by one individual for both of the motions.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just confirming.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
No.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
That motion carries. So the other day I was asked what keeps me up at night. And I'll tell you right now that I answered them that this issue is what's keeping me up at night lately. I can't fathom why residents want more people living near them. Because if this doesn't pass, there's going to be more people living there. Nelson Construction bought the land and they're gonna put up a 5-story apartment building, which they are legally entitled to build. Okay, this council is trying to get the best configuration possible for a 5-story apartment building. It's gonna be built on the circle, but it doesn't appear that the residents want the best possible. It just baffles me. So 7G2, A is the first reading of the ordinance. Since we've gone back to the first reading, I believe we need to stipulate, as Stephanie said, that we'd like to see the PUD change somehow to tie it to the project. Luke, you got that correct?
Correct. And that is referenced in the ordinance presented in the packet.
Awesome. Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay, any discussion or question or comments from council? All right. Any public comments?
I recognized, just,
Please state your name and.
You can stand up.
can you hear me if I?
Yes.
William Reasoner at the Dickinson Law Firm, 699 Walnut Street, Suite 1600 in Des Moines. Represent Alan Coyle, who is leading the Legacy Property Owners Committee. She calls it the opposition to this requested change. Thank you for recognizing me. I do wish that I had the chance to speak before you reconsidered, because I think that there was a couple other paths out there that were not considered here. The way that if you go to Roman numeral 2, number 2A, and you look at the first reading of the ordinance, the link for the ordinance, this ordinance, if you scroll down, the ordinance appears to recognize that the objections that were presented nevertheless did not meet the threshold to trigger the supermajority. I think that that is an inaccurate reading of your local ordinance, and I've sent 2 letters to the council why I believe the supermajority vote has been triggered. I'm not going to get back into that because I'm sure that you've read that. But I do want to point out that it's my understanding that my clients agree with me in my reading of this, and that if this goes through, notwithstanding the supermajority vote requirement, that legal action could follow. And so that is on the table here. So I think that should be considered. Another option, Councilmember Lester, I believe that you indicated that 5 years ago, you maybe regret that there was a vote to change this to R4, but without a cap on building height or maybe floor height. And Mayor Phillips, you've indicated that there's an absolute legal right to build a 5-story building. What the council is missing here is that the council could also rezone this parcel to what it believes would allow for an appropriate building level. There's not an absolute right to build this property right now. If this council would decide to put forward a motion that the zoning should be changed to implement a cap on the height, the developer would be subject to the council's new ordinance on this height cap. And so there are other options out there other than saying that you must have a 5-story building with more tenants or a 5-story building without more. There are options available to this council. I'm shifting gears a little bit. Could you scroll up on this screen to the very first page of the document that's up there right now? Thank you. So under the city's ordinance, 175A.19 subsection 1, the first sentence says, whenever any person, firm, or corporation desires that any amendment or change be made in the official zoning map as to any property covered by this ordinance, there shall be presented to the council a petition requesting such change or amendment, then I'll skip forward, duly signed by owners of 50% or more of the area of all real estate lying outside said tract within 200 feet. Intervening streets and alleys are not included. If you look up at the very top portion here, the applicant of this rezoning change is Nelson Construction. And I was informed earlier that this was a city requested change, but that is clearly not what the agenda states. This is absolutely a request by Nelson to rezone the property. I have not seen any evidence that Nelson obtained 50% approval from owners within 200 feet. And I believe that the objections actually presented prior to the vote far exceeds that threshold. And so there's 2 separate reasons why I believe that the ordinance that was voted upon in July, it failed as a matter of law. It failed because a proper petition was not presented, and 2, because the supermajority vote was triggered and it did not meet that threshold. And so we believe that if the council proceeds to enact this ordinance, that would be an unlawful act, and we would seek to vindicate rights in court.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And is it appropriate for us to respond? Or is it at least not inappropriate?
A question, or do you want me to step back?
I don't know yet.
We can respond.
Okay. So I want to respond a couple things, at least from my perspective. So yes, I'm aware that we could rezone the way that you have suggested. But I believe that we have historically taken the position, and I take the position that I don't want to rezone to once there is a plan. I don't want to rezone to eliminate that plan. I am happy to reconsider afterwards that in the future, we don't want to do that, but I don't practice in the way that you come to me with a plan and I'm going to change the rules before you can do anything about it. So I appreciate that we could. It's not how I like it to practice. What we are doing at least as far as I understand, my expectation is that by starting over, we will resolve the issue of the supermajority. And so I think your point has been taken, and the discussion was, we recognize that there is some discrepancy and we don't necessarily want to deal with litigation. So can we resolve that? And at least again, from my perspective, I believe we're going to resolve that by starting over and ultimately having the opportunity for a supermajority.
Correct.
So I think those address the things that you have brought forward to us.
May I respond to the?
I have no idea. I'm happy for you too, but you gotta accept.
To the first point, I agree with you that is, my point is that there's another option on the table. Your decision on how you view that option is absolutely a council decision. To the second point, the fact of reconsidering this, in my mind, does not change the fact that the original vote failed and that under the ordinance, there's no ability to reapply within a year. And so the vote failed as a matter of law, so there were no other readings to be reconsidered. The vote failed. That's the position that I would take.
Okay, but my
Eventually.
understanding is that if there is a failure, it can be brought back before the council within that year by somebody who voted against. And that's what we're kind of doing.
A separate part of it.
Yeah,
Right.
And I would say that that would be an item of litigation. And I don't want to get, I'm not trying to get into, I'm not arguing the legal case now. I'm saying that this is a real concern to the property owners there, and that there's a real desire to continue to vindicate their rights, which means going to court. And I'm not gonna argue with anybody about what I believe the position of law is, even though it sounds like I'm arguing it. I think that the point is, I disagree, and I believe I have a good faith legal basis for that disagreement. And I think that you should consider that in making your decision on what downsides there could be to your vote. That's the point that I want to make.
And again, I think that's fair. And I would just tell you that I think we have heard, we have been advised, you, our council. And I think that I feel like I am making an informed decision, understanding what the consequence could be.
I just want to thank you for your threats. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm just telling you what like it is. You're threatening, all of your statements have ended with threatening to sue, so thank you. I'm just stating a fact.
I am sorry that I appear threatening, but I believe that it is an act, the likelihood of a lawsuit arising from your decisions based on what I believe improper application of law is, I think that's a fact, that there could be litigation that could last for several years on this.
So the litigation would go on and he would come back tomorrow and build it without needing a zone change in a heartbeat.
Right.
Tomorrow, while all this litigation goes on and you've all spent a fortune, he's gonna come back tomorrow, put up either a really nice place or a low income housing, whatever. He doesn't have to come here. Do you realize that?
He does have to come
The
with,
expense. And what you're going to get right now is 11 months difference. Next year, this could come back in spite of litigation. You want to just spend them, waste money that way? It's insane.
Can I just ask, Luke Paris,
Yes.
just a point, if a project fails, it can come back sooner than a year if there are substantial changes to that project, correct?
Correct. Our
It just
ordinance,
can't come back in the same form that it.
ordinance states that the same zoning change covering the same property or the same property and additional property cannot be considered by the city council until 1 year of time shall have elapsed. So then you'd have to ask the question, what amount of change to a proposal would need to occur for it to no longer be the same zoning change?
Correct, so.
And with it being a PUD, I don't know, that gets maybe very nitpicky, because it's already an R4 request before you. It's modifying the conditions of the R4. So I'm not sure. Jim and I would have to review a new proposal and make a determination if that was.
But that is a
different.
proposal for a new zoning change. It's not a limitation of receiving a new site plan or
Right.
application for building a building.
Right, so that's, okay. So if in theory this failed, there's nothing to prevent the developer from coming back tomorrow
Tomorrow.
with a plan for 5-story apartment building that actually requires no zone changes.
Right. Correct.
To that point, yes, that when the status of this zoning decision wouldn't matter. The condition of the property as it exists now can have a apartment building proposed to it of, I believe it's up to 165 feet, as long as they have the right dimensional setbacks. That would be a very tiny, tall building at that situation, but yes, there, at that point in time, we would go straight to site plan. P and Z and council would review that site plan. And then if approved, we would issue a building permit.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one more question? Sure. So he said he's representing one individual and then a group, but that group I cannot, I went online, I couldn't find that group actually exists. So my question is he only representing one individual technically? I'm asking that question because there's no legal group.
I don't think there has to be a legal group.
I think at this point in time, I don't know if it matters. I think the council can give the weight that it wants to, well, what was said.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want my answer?
No.
I have a question, Jim.
Okay.
He presented to us the option of modifying zoning.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't know whether or not there'd even be a second in the council. But is that a viable legal option? Since we already have a project before it compliant with that zoning.
The council has the right to turn down this project. If it were to turn down the project. Sorry. If it were to turn down the project, the city council could, there are routes that have been legally defended in court, but also usually if something like that's done, it goes to court. Or you'd have to look at the comprehensive plan. If we wanted to change zoning from R4, we would probably have to review the comprehensive plan, change the comprehensive plan, and then do the rezoning to come within compliance of the comprehensive plan. So you would also then have to have the question of whether we would have the right to subjectively just deny a current building permit that was in compliance, which is also another legal issue, legal hurdle that would probably be fought out in court. So is there a clear way to do that? No, I mean, I think it's safe to say we're being threatened with legal action regardless of what you do. How about that?
We're on the dilemma.
Yeah.
Yep.
Alexander Gugarich, the applicant. I haven't brought my legal counsel or anything. I'm just me, right? I'm a partner in the project, and I just want to talk with you all. Even though I'm not a lawyer, it is very clear that if reverse zoning happened, it would be inverse condemnation. So like, that's our belief, that I don't think there is a mechanism for you to do that, because I think it is very clear it would be inverse condemnation. Just that's what we believe, based on, case law and everything else. But really, I think this is kind of, getting away from a lot of the very specific facts of merit here. We're not going to weigh in at all on the option that you guys picked, and I'm not going to fight with their attorney over what was legal or what wasn't. We have relied on city staff and council for direction on procedural things, and so we're not weighing in on that whatsoever.
when it comes to this project, our company is about to be 24 years old. Our first project were the pillars in front of Legacy and the clinic on the outside of the Legacy Circle. We then went and did the senior living project as well. That's a very nice, very premium project. And that's the kind of stuff that we build. We want to do nothing but continue to come to this community and invest money. I went to school here. I used to be in your seats when I was a student at Drake. I want nothing but the best for Norwalk. And I think our project, while we benefit from it, also benefits Norwalk. That's all we want. We're not threatening legal action. This process and how it's dragged out has cost us money, not just in our, vendors, but also in our opportunity cost. We could have started construction sooner. We're now having cost inflation, even more. Interest rates are going to continue to go up. This delay, and the longer it drags out, even though we have been directly harmed financially, we're not sitting here threatening lawsuits or anything like that. But we do need to see this come to a resolution so that we can move forward, because we're in the business of building projects. We have a construction company. We're in the process of developing projects, and we also are in the business of owning projects and maintaining them as we have. As a result, yes, if this continues to drag out, like I said, we have already been harmed financially, not esoteric, subjective things, very objective things. We need to move forward. And if we need to move forward with a project that we can build by right, again, we believe it would be inverse condemnation if you tried to rezone it somehow. But we could come in, build by right. We could change the unit mix. We, on our renderings, have rendered a project that is befitting of what we build and what we do. We don't do that because the market gives us higher rents for it or that we stay more full. We do that because we want to be proud and want to be a member of the community. Unfortunately, in an interest rate environment like this and with cost inflation like this, numbers don't pencil. That's why you see record low building permits. And if you think this is bad, just wait till next year. And it's happening nationwide. We need to build a project. So we're not even going to be hurt building to your minimum architectural standard. We don't want to. Inside, I'm going to die a little bit because I'm a design maven. But at the end of the day, we have to do a project. We purchased this ground. We've spent all this money on vendors, everything else. So if we move forward, yes, it would have to be what we can do by right. And we would have to do everything absolute code minimum in order to make the project work and break ground and move forward. Like I said, we don't want that. Our firm's first project was literally off this circle. And then we kept coming back, and we want to keep coming back. My parents are still here. Like I said, I went to school here, but this can't keep continuing. Otherwise, we're going to keep getting damaged more and more and harmed, and then we're going to have to build something. So I appreciate you hearing me out on all this. And my goal is just to find a resolution with everybody.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yeah, come on up. Please state your name and address.
I don't know if I can remember it right now. Sandra Smith, 745 Sawgrass Drive, Norwalk, Iowa. And I have a question that's more, I'm not really a yes or no on the building, but my question applies to the building and all the building in Norwalk. And I just want to express that I think the council and city employees could bring down the level of angst greatly if we had more information. Now, I know your first comment is going to be, well, look online, not everything's online. I want you to look at the age of this congregation. We have, oh, I'm sorry, a pastor, former pastor. And, I get so far and then I have to shut the computer off. But this is in the entire building up. I think all of us have kind of been dumbstruck this summer over all the building. I mean, I swear, Lord, I swear that you can drive down a street in the morning and when you come back, there'll be a new house sitting on it. And that's unnerving to people. It's upsetting to people that we don't know what all this is going to entail. And I'm sure there are demographic studies been done on all of this for the city. Is that, am I right or wrong?
You're right.
Like, how is this going to affect our schools? How is this, we built a new athletic center. And the one thing I think many of us would agree with is that Norwalk needs a new city pool. We don't, there's just not enough water, I guess, but, and we built this new center and there's no pool in it. And there's not enough parking. I'm a grandmother and I have to walk maybe 4 or 5 blocks to get to a game. And you don't know what that does to a person my age. So, it's what pre-planning has been done. If we're going to have 40 or 50 new kids in a circle, how's that going to affect our bus system? Where's the bus stop going to be? How do kids get on and off the bus? What equipment is available in surrounding communities? I mean, there's just so much stuff going on, and I'm sure the demographic studies have been done. I don't know how to get a hold of them. And I'm not articulate enough for the computer to find it. So if you find a better way to get the information out to people, or, stand on the street corners with, I don't care how you do it. I just think that you need to, instead of just coming in and saying, well, we're going to build this building, which I understand your position entirely, but I think there's so much that goes around where I live. It's like adding 500 people to my front yard. And, that's fine. They're welcome to Norwalk as far as I'm concerned. I just want to know, it scares me to death the thought of 50 or 60 more kids in our neighborhood getting on and off a bus or riding bicycles. Have you seen how many bicycles go by my house in the morning to get to the school? And it's unsettling. And your population is getting older. I'm sorry. By the minute, we're all getting older. So thank you for listening, and I appreciate it. And I'm willing to help if there's anything we can do.
Thank you.
Be careful, they might write down your name. There's plenty of volunteer spaces available.
Mayor,
Yes.
just real quick, I was invited by 2 separate groups to come out and sit in their kitchen and talk with them and answer all their questions about that. In fact, Alan was one of them that invited me. I believe invited me before he contacted the attorney, and I was happy to go out there, and I sat with him in a group. And just 2 nights ago, I went and sat in another person's kitchen and went through with them any questions that they had about this. Yesterday afternoon, I sat with school officials. We meet with them quarterly. It's a city school meeting, and we talk about enrollment issues. I explained to them, they knew about the apartment because we keep them involved. So they're aware of it. They asked questions. So we have that communication with them as well. I was the complete side note, but they said the kindergarten class was much smaller this year, which was a little bit unique. But anyway,
How do we get that message and that information out to people?
I'll give you my cell phone number and you can call me and I'd be happy to be there.
Yeah, but you're like calling in a car, You can just come to my house. Oh, that's, how many people. But I'm sure the information is out there. I don't think you're doing this just off the top of your head, but
Right.
I just think people need to know and feel comfortable. I think that's to me, that's one of the problems. I don't know, am I speaking wrong? That just be more comfortable. with what's
Going
happening.
back in time though, that area was posted for the zoning changes back and forth. Going back in time, we had public meetings on this. It was certainly a public meeting when planning and zoning considered all these things too. And letters were sent out to the adjacent property owners. Okay, so those things are all legal requirements. Those all had to be done, ahead of time. And then years and years ago, when the place was first zoned commercial, I'm sure we could look back on the record, but I'm sure all that stuff was probably done then as well, you know. So, I know for a fact that the city doesn't try to keep secrets. They really don't.
I don't think it's trying to hide.
And they put it in the paper and they put it a lot of times in the water bill that people get, you know, the information letter and they put it then, on the website, you know. And I don't know what other avenues we might have, you know, to try to get information out to the public. It's not that we don't want the public informed.
I
We
don't
really do.
think that. I really don't think that. I'm just saying, you have a whole lot of people that are not getting this information, and I think you've probably done your due diligence, but. You know,
If
I'm
you
just
have
like-
suggestions on how to better communicate, we would love to hear them because we try everything that we possibly know to communicate to the public. And there are always, you know, we do all that we can.
Well,
And one way that you can get questions answered is show up here on the second Saturday of the month at 9 o'clock. And we have a community chat. You can ask us anything you want to ask.
Saturday, 9 o'clock.
Second Saturday of the month.
Okay,
We're in here every month. We're in here and we're taking questions and whatever you want to ask.
Usually have to bring your own coffee though. I always.
You do have to bring your own coffee. But if you want to bring donuts, that would be okay.
yeah.
Or
Well, thank you.
Yep. All right.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate your comments.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. Big fan of public participation and notifying on this specific project as it relates. Not only did you all do your steps, we took the same list of every address within a radius, and we sent our own invitation to our neighborhood meeting. Like which if you remember from our first reading, we didn't have to, but we held a neighborhood meeting and we invited everyone that did get a zoning letter as well. So I just want to be clear, like we also did everything we could to inform everyone as well, paid for postage, everything. So,
Thank
yep.
you. Thank you. Yes.
Richard Glade, 612 Sawgrass. I was invited to your party that you had at Pyra Pizza.
Yep.
But there was no other letter came to my.
Yeah, sir.
Mr. Glade,
Yeah.
Can
I'm
you
sorry.
address council?
Yeah. I did receive a invite to their dog and pony show at Pyra Pizza. But there was nothing came to my address as far as any zoning changes. That he just stated that was sent out to everybody. You know, it's a shame that, you know, when this thing first changed from the commercial to residential, multiplex R4, whatever it is, that was done to Hubble. And that was supposed to be for senior housing in that area. That's what was supposed to go there. But then magically, Hubble never started to build a senior housing in that area. And all of a sudden, Nelson Construction owns the business, or owns the land, and they're going to construct this building. I cannot say with any certainty that Nelson didn't go to Hubble and get them to get the change done. And then Nelson bought it from Hubble. But it seems like that very well may have been what happened. But it just seems, and then everybody says, well, we shouldn't have done that. But we've done it, so it's too late. You know, and what about the citizens that live here? You know, that type of an excuse is very hard to swallow. And for us to be the victims of that. You know, and I've rode this horse up here before on the private streets in the city of Norwalk. And I realize this is not that issue at this time. However, I was told by Councilman Livingston that there would be no more private streets built in the city of Norwalk. Well, that went away. It continues. And, you know, and even the city manager says that for the people that live on private streets, they're horrible. But for the city, they're great. Because we have no responsibilities there at all. So there again, oh, well, we're getting the money out of you folks. And we don't have to give you any city service. We don't have to plow that street. We don't have to put any streetlights on that street. And yet everybody just says, oh, well, too bad. So please, in the future, know what you're passing, know what you're doing, and don't just make the citizens your scapegoat. Thank you.
Fair thought there, Mayor. Any other public input? Okay. Moving on.
Good evening. My name is Dave Nowicki. I live at 868 Sawgrass. And I've been to all these meetings. I wasn't to the second reading. I got to admit, I was pretty disgusted after the first meeting. Immediately put my house for sale. Unfortunately, it's not gone yet. 868 Sawgrass is immediately across the street of Colonial Circle. I've heard a lot of platitudes about affordable housing, and I think we in North Central Norwalk pull our weight on that. There are 3 apartment complexes currently comfortably within a half-mile radius: Cedarbrook, Legacy Landing, and High Point. So there's no shortage of affordable housing in that immediate area. What I will say too, in having attended all these meetings, planning and zoning and the council meetings, I find there's a stunning lack of skepticism to anything Nelson has to say. It just became a matter of fact that all of a sudden, because he said he's going to build a 5-story building, that's what's going to go up. If he says, I'm going to build a 5-story building with all 3-bedroom apartments, that's what's going to go up. Can any of you honestly say you know of any apartment complex of 100 or more units in central Iowa that consists solely of 3-bedroom apartments? Anybody? He's just complaining about cost of money, cost of materials. Do you think if he killed this variance for him, a 40% variance, do you think he might not be able to afford to build higher? All I'm saying, zero skepticism. Whatever he says gets lapped up and spit out to the citizens who are getting screwed royally. Thank you.
Right. Nope.
No.
No.
You're good.
Right, the comments are addressed to council for council to respond to, not for the audience to have a debate back and forth. So my position is, I'm not trying to stifle you, but this council meeting is not for you all to go back and forth. It's for us to hear the information and make an informed decision.
Right. Thank you, Jen. Any other public input? Sure, come on up.
My name's Steve Jacobson. I live at 846 Sawgrass. Mr. Lester, I was happy some meetings ago when you had the council look into things a little bit further than the superficial situation that it seemed to be before you asked the table so that you could get more information. I didn't care for the way you just basically attacked an attorney, that he was threatening a lawsuit when he stated facts. There's no sense to that.
Did he not threaten a lawsuit?
I'm just saying,
Sir.
you could have
Let's-
used a nicer term, because whether it's threatening or not, it just is not appropriate in a public
Sir?
forum.
Let's address the issue at hand. Let's
Okay.
not be attacking other people.
I'm not attacking somebody. I was stating a fact about the fact that that term was used when it was absolutely inappropriate.
It has nothing to do with the project. Let's talk about the project.
Okay, the project itself, many of us are seniors and many of us didn't live in Norwalk when all these decisions had been made in the past. As a person who is a reasonably new resident of Norwalk, I expected to get some kind of a fair shake. And the thing that really bothered me this evening was, before there was public comment, good public comment, you already made your decision. Thank you.
Ma'am?
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Charlotte Schmidt, I live the road behind Sawgrass, 550 Legacy Court. My husband and I came here from Long Island to get away from the population and the humdrum of New York. And so we were very happy to come here. We love Iowa. My husband worked in Keosauqua. He was superintendent of schools. So we're used to Iowa. I want to address my comments as nicely as possible. You know, we heard about the threatening here, and I'm sorry, sir, but I don't like being told that maybe low income housing will come in. It's kind of threatening. You know, you have to realize, I know, I did say both, but we have to be civil because we live here. And we want to be able to address issues that concern us as far as all the cars that are going to be going in and out. There's only by the light. I don't know if we're going to be standing on line for how long to get across because of all the other things that are happening in Norwalk, more cars going up and down 28. And so I see that it's going to be a hindrance to our whole community. And I'm sorry that I didn't know about the 5-story building. I certainly wouldn't have, I would have said something if I would have known, because I moved away from that to come here. And I thought that you people would be more thinking about how we feel as residents, because we live here. And I really look forward to staying in Iowa. I want to, this is the last house I want to live in. And so, but I really didn't plan on looking at a 5-story building. And I know that you say it's a done deal. I'm sorry it's a done deal, because I don't know why you passed the resolutions today. I'm not familiar with the legalities of how you work, you know, with your, I don't know, your rules and everything. But I don't know why it was all passed already before that we could even get up and address it. And I thought that as residents and taxpayers, I thought we had more of a say. And so that's really all I want to say, because you serve us.
Ma'am, I think you're being heard before the final vote's taken.
My
We haven't
time is
taken a
up.
vote yet. We haven't taken a vote. I don't understand.
But
So
no,
I-
but you made a resolution to have a resolution.
We have moved forward.
Yes.
What we did was figure out procedurally how we're gonna go forward.
Mhm.
We haven't voted yet to make any final decisions about whether or not we're gonna allow this. Our vote was procedurally, what are we gonna do next? So I appreciate your comments, and right, it's all a very confusing business. Believe me, every time I sit up here, I figure something else new I didn't understand about the procedures. But we haven't done any voting yet on what we're gonna do. We have simply established what procedure we're gonna follow. So this, you all now are speaking before we
Why
make
did
the
you
vote.
set a procedure that you're gonna make a resolution already?
We
Why?
haven't. We set the procedure
Why
to
is that?
allow us to take the next step. The next step allows you all to speak, us to make a decision and then vote.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. One more.
Steve McKibben, I'm 840 Sawgrass Drive. I'd like a clarification because I believe somewhere I saw in the city code that it requires a park to be at least 30% of the total area being considered. If that's the case, how can you go ahead, approve a project, build a building, and then come back and decide how big the park's gonna be? I'm just raising a question because the way I perceived it from the conversation was that the building was going to be built, then the park was going to be decided and dedicated. But your code says it has to be 30%. If that's the case, the building is already over the 25 limit that they're requesting because they don't have enough area of ground in the circle.
We addressed that earlier, but I'll let Jim.
But first of all, there isn't a straight 30% requirement. The number of acres that you see laid out in here, and I'm not going to debate, I'll answer your question. It just doesn't have a 30, there's some open space requirements, which are not park. I mean, you may have pulled up 30% from there, but the park dedication requirement under, with regards to the circle, that originated way back when the legacy PUD started. They looked at the entire size of the legacy PUD. We're talking from Beardsley Road all the way south to High Point Apartments and all the way across the golf course. Okay, that was all one planned unit development. In that original planned unit development, there were park dedication requirements. Okay, certain sizes of ground required depended on densities, things like that. As a result of that, there were parks dedicated. I mean, like we had Billy O. Phillips Park. That was part of that, and that cut down on some of the requirements. What's happened as the PUD area, the entire legacy area, which was originally Colonial Meadows developed out, this ground is open ground that's left. And as a result of that, the residual amount of park required is now coming up. So when when the current owner of it, the developer, purchased this ground, he knew when he purchased it, they knew when they purchased it, that there was a park dedication ordinance in place, and there was a park dedication requirement in place. That park dedication, now, if you go to our park dedication ordinance, like I explained earlier in the meeting, it can be total acres, and that's what's represented right now, total acres. But there's also other things that can be used instead of that. So, you know, maybe for instance, the city has a new development comes in and says, okay, we need to have an acre's worth of park, but you know, we say we don't really want another park there because we have enough parks. We'd rather have you take the money and buy a playground for this neighboring park, which would benefit. So, you know, I don't know why you scoff at that. I mean, that's how your parks get developed. And
we used it a lot for bike paths.
Yeah, we've used it for bike paths. So it can be variable things. So right now there's an in-place dedication amount. And that park dedication requirement, that's going to be enforced, but the building doesn't get built first, then you address it later. It's all part of the site plan. So the site plan will come in and it's going to have to comply. The building doesn't get approved until the park dedication complies.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it seems like you're getting the cart before the horse.
All right. So. Any further discussion? Can I get a motion to approve the first reading?
Motion.
We're all done with public comment. So I got a motion. Anybody want a second? Okay, so I got a motion by Rivas, seconded by Livingston. Any further council discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Riva,
Yes.
Poole,
No.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. We're gonna take a 10-minute recess. It is 7:39 PM.
Urgent.
I didn't touch it.
You ready, Lindsay?
Yes, sir.
You got the tape going?
Yep. I'll let it.
All right. We are calling back into order. It is 7:52 PM. Item 7H is final reading of an ordinance amending the official zoning map. The city of Norwalk, Iowa by amending parcel C in the Hughes Century Crossing Plan Unit Development to permit building separations 10 feet, total driveway lengths of 20 feet. So we heard about this zoning change a couple meetings ago. Luke, you got anything to add?
Nothing new.
All right, any discussion, questions, comments from council?
I just want to explain, somebody asked me why I was voting no on this one. I just want to share because it's 5-foot setbacks and I think that's too close for houses.
Okay,
I just wanted to say that out loud. Somebody asked me and I should share it out loud.
fair enough. Anything else? Any public comment? Second motion to approve the final reading? Motion. Motion by Cool, seconded by Riva. Any further discussion? Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
No.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7I is resolution indicating intent to participate in authorizing the inclusion of the city of Norwalk in final draft agreement establishing Central Iowa Waterworks. So I believe this is just another resolution that indicates that Norwalk would like to continue participating in the establishment of the Central Iowa Waterworks. Luke, anything with that?
That's a great summary. I would love to talk more if anybody would like me to explain more.
No, thank you.
Everybody should. Okay, motion by Livingston, second is by Lester. I get the feeling that council wants to kind of move quickly on for the rest of the agenda. Anybody who if anybody here wants to comment on an item, just come on up and we'll get there. Otherwise, I'm not going to call for public comment. Lindsay, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool.
All right, motion carries. Item 7J is resolution confirming and levying assessments for curb stop water line repairs for property located at 1012 Norwood Court, Norwalk. City needed to repair at the curb stop and water line at this residence. The resolution confirms that the city will be compensated by the homeowner for the repair, sets an interest rate for the assessment, and authorize city clerk to file the assessments with the Warren County Treasurer. Lindsay or Jim, you got anything to add?
Nope, I think you hit it well.
Good deal. Any discussion, questions, comments from council?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Baker. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7K. Resolution approving purchase agreement for 25 acres of land from the Dunn family. So the city's going to purchase 25 acres from the Dunn family at the southwest corner of their property. This is down close to the North River. We need some of the land as an offset for conservation easements. By the way, thank you for the offset word. I just could not get that last night after doing all the legs and stuff. So, which will allow the sanitary sewer easement to run through Serenity Woods. I believe the plan is to append the rest of the land onto Serenity Woods. You know, it's going to be a great place to put a parking lot in the future for access to the park. So Luke or Jim, anything to add?
Nope, other than the council had seen this and it kind of approved the purchase price before. But this was the final purchase agreement. We thought we should come back and let the council take a look at it again and re-vote on it.
All right, discussion, comments, questions from council.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Reba, seconded by Lester. Lindsay, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7L is final reading of an ordinance providing for the division of taxes levied on taxable property in the Norwalk urban renewal area pursuant to section 403.19 of the Code of Iowa for Sportsplex. This ordinance establishes a new urban renewal area at the sports campus. Holly, got anything to add? Any discussion, questions, council?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Baker, seconded by Livingston. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Reba.
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7M. It's first reading of an ordinance creating a new chapter 77 golf carts, providing for the limited operation of golf carts upon specifically designated golf cart paths and for the crossing of city streets. I'm gonna let Chief Staples explain this one.
Sure. As you know, in the past, we've had a discussion about golf carts and their use in the city. And we wanted to just define it so that they were usable in the Echo Valley neighborhood where the neighborhood was designed for their use and on the pathways on the side of the road in that neighborhood. This ordinance allows for that to happen. It allows for golf carts to cross the road while they're playing golf, which happens at the Legacy Golf Course in 2 places and at Echo Valley in 1 place.
3 places.
3? Okay.
That's okay.
That's what I get for not playing that. At any rate, the code is not designed to allow golf carts to travel along city streets. It's just to cross them and to get from a house that's not on the side of the road where the sidewalk was built for carts. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right.
Jim, did I miss anything?
Nope, I think you did pretty good. I think it is written, I guess the only thing I would point out, it's not written as far as a requirement of operation that they're actually like playing golf at the moment. I wanted to get out of the, some sort of factual interpretation that police would have, police department would have to have those too. Boy, did they just finish golf as it coming and going to the golf game. So we just basically, it's operation of golf carts is what it is.
Okay.
My only concern with this, I mean, I think it's a good idea, but my only concern with it is if people might construe it, bike paths. As opposed to just a golf cart paths. So I just, I'm thinking probably have to do some posting somewhere. That it's not a cart path where those things connect.
Are they connecting someplace?
Well, they probably will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it probably will be, right? Because you can come off a cart path, run across the street, and you'll be able to find a bike trail. It's gonna be there. Right?
I do agree with Ed that I'm not sure that, I'm not sure that bicyclists always understand what the golf cart path is, and I'm not sure frankly that all golf cart drivers understand what the golf cart path is. And so I do think there might be some benefit to including some kind of language. I mean, how do we designate a golf cart path? Other than it's on a golf course? I don't know.
Yeah, it's defined in the ordinance though.
Yeah, it's defined in the ordinance. All I'm suggesting is that maybe we.
Maybe sign, putting
You can have some signage on it though.
Yeah, posting when it's appropriate.
It's golf cart path. There you go. Okay. Okay. A designated golf cart path is something described as a golf cart path.
Well, that's got it right there.
That's what it says.
It's a golf cart.
Something designated as a golf cart path.
Yep. It's in section 4. So go to section 4.
In the PUD, it actually describes it.
But I guess what my concern is that. Okay. I'm not seeing where. My concern is that people out and about may not know where the golf cart paths are. Seems to me like maybe they should, but you get a 16-year-old kid who is legally able to drive it, but doesn't really appreciate where the golf cart path is. I just want to make sure that we are clear for our community what a golf cart path is. It's not Beardsley, which is, wide enough for a golf cart. It's not the bike trail, which is wide enough for a golf cart. I just want to make sure that it's clear. I don't see in here that it's clear, so.
It's in section 3, not 4.
I was just gonna point that out as well.
It's number 7, section. It states.
It specifically says where they are. Thank you.
Yeah.
My
then I-
intention-
I think.
Then I withdraw my comments.
Well, I think the ordinance is clear, but I think they're valid comments as far as, you know, I know the law presumes everybody knows what an ordinance says, but the reality of it is the 16-year-old kid that's driving around isn't gonna know what, you know, chapter 77 of the Norwalk Code says as far as the ordinance, so maybe signage is justifiable.
I do think signage would be appropriate. I don't know, right? These typically golf cart are private, correct? Or not?
No, these are actually public.
Oh,
Yeah, and the reason why, the way these were designated is when the plats came through, these were actually designated as golf cart paths in the plats when the city council approved it. So that's,
Okay.
I mean, we just didn't randomly grab these. These were
Sure, fair.
from those plats.
Very unique.
All right, anyway, I'll move on.
Well, I would motion this, you know. With a comment that I would encourage signage. Use.
Like anything else, we want compliance.
Right.
So we'll play it by ear as we go.
Native properties aware of this, so they know that. You know, they ask you and put up some signs.
No, what? You had a question.
Has your native properties seen this, whole enterprises? Since it is in the Ridge neighborhood.
I don't.
I have not shared it with them, no.
But we can share it with you. I'll put up signs.
Bad idea at all.
I'd like
Right,
to.
I think it's a smart thing to do.
Yeah,
And-
I would even
I would agree.
go further and ask if we could use the software that does for zoning and that. Could we select and mail this? We've had a tough time educating the Ridge neighborhoods, all of them, on, 16 and older. It's a really complicated concept, but obviously we have a tough time with that. If we actually sent them a letter from the city and them not thinking, oh, this is just from the club, they can't control. Is that possible to maybe send out a letter?
It should be.
With the
Oh, it's
map
yeah,
and a
absolutely
highlight
possible.
on
I would
which
love
side
to.
of the road you're supposed to go on.
Yeah, you can make a map and highlight where you're.
That would be fantastic.
Probably like that, what, 16 font, big print.
Yes, maybe larger.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the 16-year-olds can't read it.
Okay.
Question.
State your name and address.
1506 Holly.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Schultze,
Okay,
1506 Holly.
thanks.
There's a golf cart, sort of, that goes by my house quite often. It has a license plate, turn signals, but it's still a golf cart.
White?
Yeah.
That is a slow moving vehicle.
That's an Obama car.
Come up before. Yeah, and that has come up before and that is actually street legal. So go ahead.
National Highway Transportation Safety Board has declared that a low-speed vehicle meets the safety standards required by the federal government. The state of Iowa allows them on the road with proper registration and a license plate. So what you're seeing is considered a car by the state of Iowa.
Yeah. That's a good question. I saw it today. So,
I've seen another one go around that area, yellow,
yeah,
doesn't have plates.
The yellow one is not a low-speed vehicle under the code. It's actually a moped with a housing around it. And the owners of that have been told not to drive it anymore because it doesn't meet the low-speed vehicle requirements.
there you go.
You had the answer.
Other discussion, question, comment? Okay, so I believe I heard a motion by Cool, second by Lester. Any further discussion? Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Riva.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Ooh, we made it to item 8. Future agenda items. Anybody have anything?
I do.
Yes.
So I would like to explore some type of policy or plan for when we have a city council meeting where we have too many people in the room. I would like to be proactive, right? I come from a world where you come in the courtroom and you find a seat, and if there's not a seat, you don't get to be in there. And it is uncomfortable for me that we have people standing in the doorway, that we have people standing that people are standing on the ramp, behind our staff. I don't think that it's an appropriate situation, and I would like us to come up with some kind of policy and which may require that if we have an agenda item that we know that's gonna draw a lot of people, we move the council meeting at, with short notice, but I would like to come up with a plan.
Couldn't the fire chief or designee, state the capacity of the room and post it?
I think Jeremy was looking for that earlier, but
Yeah, Luke and I actually discussed that with Bears. It'll be
But-
posted before the next one.
Yeah, right, which is good, but more than that, right? We want people to come, we want them to be heard. So I think that if we know, like tonight, we should have expected, right, we're gonna have a ton of people. We can't always anticipate it, but I think if we do, we ought to have a plan for how are we gonna meet with that.
At a minimum, if it's not a capacity issue, maybe it's just finding a way to pack more chairs in here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
but I don't wanna be in a situation again where I was.
Or move it to the auditorium.
I have a motion to direct staff to build policy on
Capacity and
crowd
overcrowding.
control in council chambers, and to bring it on to a council agenda in the future.
Maybe it's being done.
That was it. That could be as well. And do I have a second? Okay, so I got motion by Livingston on that, seconded by Reva. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carried. Anything else? For future agenda items?
Nope.
All right. Got that. Item 9, council inquiries and staff updates. We have 2028 vision goals quarterly update.
Just for your information to take a look at, if you have any comments, questions, or all of us as staff would be happy to respond.
All right. And we have City State Bank, Norwalk Fieldhouse flooring.
I'm taking that one. I believe Shawnese, I'm taking that one for Robin. So there was a few questions that came up about the field house flooring. Some questions if it was the appropriate type of flooring for all the different type of tournaments that we're going to have in the community. I thought Robin did an outstanding job of doing research, and she put it all together in that agenda statement. Shawnese brought in a sample of what the Omnisport flooring looks like. So that's what so this is the stuff that we will have in the field house.
Vinyl flooring.
The vinyl.
That's sport court. That one is what we'll have, the vinyl.
Yep.
And then the other one is sport court. And that is not what we have.
We have that.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you want to see specifically what kind of flooring it is, you can look at these samples. Are there any other questions for me on that?
Do you need any action by us to do that? I mean, you've already.
The only
got-
action we would need by you, if for some reason you felt that it was better to go a direction other than the Omnisport vinyl flooring, to make a motion to direct us to pursue a different flooring.
Pass it down.
This is the one our building recommended. Right?
This is the one that has gained consensus and recommendation by a number of people as it was outlined in the agenda statement.
We talked about it.
And even Ed, you had talked to me about calling some other entities, and Robin did do that.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Okay. Jim.
Nope, nothing new.
Stephanie. David? Hey, I like that. That's pretty neat. Welcome back. Ed?
Snooze, lose.
I have nothing new. Just happy to do this.
David? Luke?
Just quick, permit numbers for October was 16. That puts us at 170 right now, so we're right on track to be right about 200 for the year.
All right. Thank you, David. I'll let you know if I remember. Okay, sounds good. Carrie?
You're not that old, David. What's the deal?
Tony's not on. Wayne.
The Beardsley Street striping contractor was on site today, grooving out lines. They're anticipated to finish up pavement striping tomorrow, open up Beardsley east of Marketplace Drive tomorrow evening, tomorrow afternoon.
Everybody's a baker.
Just a comment, the striping's a little difficult to go through.
It's not striped yet, they just grooved it today.
Okay,
Yep,
on the west side?
yep, that's just grooving, they haven't put any paint on yet.
Okay, that'll be great then. Thank you for that clarification. Jeremy?
Nothing.
Chief?
Just two quick things. December 6th is our date for Cops with Carts this year. And we got notified today that the Megan Stouty murder trial will begin on November 29th. So expect some media coverage on that, and I'm gonna let the county attorney handle most of that media deal if there's a request. So that's all I have.
Okay. Jean, you got anything?
Yes, just a couple of items. Thank you for approving the audit. Working with Denman is very enjoyable. Rob and his team are appreciated. I think that they appreciate our team as well. They get us on the calendar early, send us what they need. Our team responds quickly as well. I want to thank our staff, Lindsay and Carrie, particularly for that. They help the process along. My counterparts are always impressed when I tell them we're done with the audit. It's helpful in such a myriad of ways as far as forecasting, compliance, and then I'm really always happy that we're done with that prior to starting the budget the next year. So as far as override of management control, I know that Rob addressed this, but I wanted the council to know that we work really hard to have our internal controls in place. Just a couple examples, the person who accepts the money and payments is different from the person who makes the deposits to the bank. Sometimes exceptions are if someone is gone. We have a small office. That's in an effort to be efficient. However, redundancy of duties can happen with this situation. But we really do try to manage that. And we did just hire another admin person for our office and public works. And we'll be able to revise our internal policies and procedures to include this person and divide those duties. So I just wanted to address that. And then one other thing, I just wanted to let you know, we found out from the state that the rollback is decreasing by about 8.3%, which is huge. So from 54 to about 46%. So along with our reduction in our tax asking, we're looking at about a little over 11% for both of those items. We also know assessments increased. So, here we are rolling into the budget, and it will be interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Holly?
Just thank you to those of you that were able to participate and attend the presidential event last week. We do really appreciate it. I know Chief Staples' staff, his officers just did a completely amazing job, and we heard from the consulate, we heard from the president's advisors and all sorts of people how impressed they were with Norwalk and with the officers being a part of that. And it was a really, really big deal for Norwalk to be able to get the first foreign president here. So even if you're not interested in foreign policy or international relations, it's a huge deal for your community when something like that happens. It takes a lot of work and a lot of relationship building over time. And it went really, really well. So thank you for those. And Jean.
It was a good event. I'd like to have that red carpet sometime.
It's the rocks right now. And Jean came to the rescue and helped our little staff because we have a small staff, and she helped us a couple days straight on stuff. So thank you very much, Jean.
You're welcome.
All right. Jean?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Chinese?
Nothing from
Lindsay?
go vote on Tuesday. That's it.
Wow, it's coming up that fast, huh?
But that's a question. How many, do we have, how many precincts are open or do we just have one
I haven't
voting?
heard from the county. I'll look into that because we'll get questions that day.
Yeah. that'd
Already
be
gotten
great
a ton of
If you
questions.
could find out and email.
That's right.
Yep. I will look into that.
That's mine.
Really? Okay.
All right.
Okay.
As a former auditor, I can tell you, thanks Gene and the staff, it's a really big deal. It's a lot of work for the auditors and the auditees, and, sounds like we have a great mix.
Mhm. All right, thanks. Anything else? Brent?
The news is wrong, that's all I'm gonna say. Keith Jones's conviction was inaccurately reported.
Oh,
That's all good, but it just was not accurate. I've got a lot of questions. He was not convicted as charged,
okay.
so.
Wow. All right. Luke?
Going back to the audit thing, you know, it wasn't that far back in history for Norwalk where audits were a struggle each year. With a lot of issues. So I'm just gonna echo that as well. Great job, Gene and your team. Lindsay, I know you're a key part of that as well. It's neat to see those come through with boring audits are great. We had a school meeting. I think I mentioned that during the discussion about legacy. They said that they just finalized their official enrollment. And they said kind of a little bit of an anomaly, at least they're hoping it's an anomaly. The kindergarten class was quite small, comparatively speaking. Yeah, so they said that was just something for them to keep an eye on. They continue to do a lot of forward thinking and planning about their facilities. So that was good, and keeping the city updated. So just for anybody else that's curious, we do those meetings quarterly. Sometimes there's nothing on the agenda. Sometimes there's a lot on the agenda, but it's just a good relationship to maintain with the school. And the last thing, I don't want to specifically, well, I'm going to call them out. Ed and Jim, we're going to have to buy you guys lapel mics if you can't lean in, talk in.
Hey. We've got a sign down here. It says speak into the microphone.
And you still don't do it.
I don't want to do it.
All
16-year-olds and
yeah, all joking aside, one of the residents did catch up with me out in the hallway. He was very polite, but disappointed because it is hard. Some people that have a little bit more difficult hearing, if you're not leaning up, talking more into the mics, or you don't have more of a, you're not talking out to the audience, a little bit harder for them to hear. So, but maybe we should be looking at some alternatives. So I emailed Lindsay and I said, maybe we should look into lapel mics anyway, just in case.
Just chairs that don't recline.
Or
Hey.
I think mics would be cheaper.
All right, okay, I'll talk loud.
Two chairs.
that's all I have.
All right. Just reminder, it's November the 11th is the second Saturday, so be in here at 9 to 10:30. And hopefully some of the residents that were out there will show up and
with donuts.
maybe,
Maybe.
but they gotta bring their own coffee.
I know.
I also have the Metro Waste Authority annual report, and I'm gonna put it on the table in the office there, if you want to.
Exciting reading.
Exciting reading. Just overall, great, go ahead. What?
No, I was gonna say they use Denman too.
Okay,
FYI.
awesome. Just overall, great job tonight with dealing with a difficult situation, so thank you for how you addressed all that. If you go down to North and Cherry, the house that we purchased, it is gone.
It was gone at 7:30 when I went by, and it was gone by 9 when I came, or it was there at 7:30 and it was gone by 9. when I came.
Really? So it came down fast then. So,
Just drove right by, I didn't even notice.
and that's all I have. So item 10 is closed session pursuant to Iowa Code section 2151C. to discuss strategy with counsel in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent, whereas disclosure would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the governmental body in that litigation. Jim, is this valid reason to go into closed session?
Yes, it is.
All right, can I get a motion to go in closed session?
Motion second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Cool. Lindsay, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker, Reba, Cool.
See you
Yeah.
on Tuesday.
All right, motion carries. We are gonna go in closed session. It's 8:22. And we're gonna have a 5-minute recess.
Pretty cool stuff.
Okay.
But